Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I see that we have less and less people with every seminar, but brace yourselves. It is like almost the last one, right? We have one more left, so hopefully will be. I will not try to be like go into depth into my research, so everyone can follow easily. Instead, I will talk about one of the problems that I encountered during one of the sort of side project that I had, and in particular, like who owns the data that is publicly available online, maybe social media, maybe some forums, maybe something else. And yeah, I think we had like a sort of similar discussion during one of our meetings in London, quote unquote London, where we sort of touched like as a person who gave us the lectures, he sort of tried to explain it. And for those who forgot, I will a little bit review on what he said and try to go a little bit into this topic. So let's assume that you want to sort of go online, look for some data that might be publicly available and use it for your project. Is it legal? Can you do that? And yeah, we'll find out. Before we start, I just want to say that I'm not a lawyer and nothing that I say here is like should be taken as a legal advice. It might be completely wrong. It's just my side research. And yeah, please don't take this what you hear today as a something that should how it should be done. And if you have an issue or if you want to follow through on some of what I will share today, please contact either a legal representative or perhaps your ethics committee in your institution or something. But here it's just sort of for fun, as you say, as they say. So it's just for your entertainment and take it as a show. All right, so law varies by country and a lot. So it might be that in some country it would be legal or like or almost legal to do something like scraping the data of the web, using it to train your models, implementing some of the findings that you find for maybe commercial projects. And in some countries it might be strictly illegal. And where we'll of course we'll mostly look at the United States of America, since they had the vast majority of such legal cases, and the rest of the world sort of looks at the United States of America as a a flagship, if you will, that sets the field for everyone. And yeah, basically now for the branch of law that we'll touch in this presentation, what separates United States of America and Europe is that Europe has this so-called GDPR, General Directive for Protection Regulation. You know what it means. And GDPR, there is nothing like GDPR in the United States of America. They have like other laws that concerns data protection, personal data protection of users, but not like a one like in all-in-one like GDPR is. All right, first we look at Twitter. So I assume everyone knows how Twitter works, what are tweets, and what people write, what people can do with tweets. They can just write text, or they can, insert photos, maybe like short videos, etc., etc. And Twitter has become like one of the platforms where people tend to where researchers tend to look very close upon. And that's maybe occurred especially since the 2016 presidential election in the United States of America, where, it was like all kinds of stuff like Russian bots, election fraud, misinformation, polarization, opinions, etc., etc. And since then, Twitter has been particularly interesting for researchers to share, to analyze the data that has been posted, mainly like political, also like sentiment, whereas like negative, positive sentiment, all kinds of stuff. And what are those tweets? Who are the owners? Can they be copyrighted? We'll try to answer those questions in this chapter. So if you go to Twitter terms of service, they explicitly say that the Twitter is your own content and only yours. So Twitter is not, they do not have any rights on the tweets that you post. Tweet is exclusively yours. It's your thoughts, and as it's your property, it can be copyrighted. However, Twitter in these exempt terms, kind of grants themselves a royalty-free license, which basically means that, okay, this Twitter is yours that you put online. However, we retain the permission to do anything we want with this Twitter, basically to share, quote, blah, 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 utilize everything we want. And also, let me try to get a laser pointer somewhere. Oh, I think I got it. And also, Twitter allows basically their partners to do the same. By partners, it might be like, websites who are using Twitter's API or some of the other partners. So they also can like share this tweet, do whatever they want, quote, I don't know, cite, whatever. Yeah, basically that's here status. So also their partners can do everything with this Twitter. And what here mainly, how is this ecosystem partners for Twitter means that websites that can, when you go to other websites, you can sort of see a Twitter inside the website. So this like API that pulls data directly from Twitter and displays it on the third-party website. Oh, I found like one case that happened in the United States of America where Twitter was used as intellectual property. So there is a catchy phrase. Maybe we'll see it later, as I said before. That some person wrote as a tweet, and it was apparently this phrase was very catchy and very up to date. And a performer by the name of Frank Ocean appeared at one of his concerts shows wearing a T-shirt with this Twitter like printed on, and apparently like many people saw it, including the owner. So the owner contacted the manufacturer of that clothing item and said, basically, guys, you shouldn't do it like this. And they sort of it didn't go to court. They settled the dispute like themselves, and basically he got some of the money from the manufacturer. Yeah, you can follow the link if you're interested. Look at this case. Another one, whereas it will not be directly containing like text tweets, but Twitter ecosystem as such was a case, a judiciary case. So it was reviewed in court, where this guy by the name Goldman took a photo of a famous American quarterback Tom Brady and posted on Snapchat, and some reported it to Twitter, and then major news outlets started basically using this Twitter with a photo of a guy who reposted another guy who took photo another guy in their stories, and as a result, like the guy complained originally who took the photo, and the judge ruled in favor. And basically, I don't know whether or not this media outlets had to retract their reports or whatever. And what is very interesting, it was not Tom Brady who owned the photo, right? It was the guy who took a picture. So, I mean, kind of maybe perhaps for people who are into law, it's obvious. But if someone takes a photo of you, like let's say in a public place, you do not have any rights on this photo. This right belongs explicitly to the one person who took the photo. So there have been like legal cases on that, and it's kind of, I wouldn't say maybe a little bit counterintuitive, but that's how it is. You can also look at the link if you're interested in the ruling of the judge, etc., etc. Another case that I want to present here is like whatever you can read. Basically, the case was the guy took a picture of a lake, and like a news outlet reposted it through embedding, so it's like through a partner. So it wasn't just a copy, like look at the image, then right click, save as. You don't do that. They did sort of like they repost this photo through a specific like an API for Twitter, but still, and the guy's photo was not copyrighted. The guy copyrighted the photo after he saw that it was reposted, and he asked, okay, the photo is now he copyrighted the photo and asked the news outlet to remove it, and they declined. So there was like a court case, and the judge also, I don't think they specifically like agreed, but nevertheless, the judge, when it comes to the infringement of copyright rights, the judge ruled that it was not legal for the newsletter to do that. Now we'll go to Facebook. Now it goes by the name of Meta. I haven't changed it yet because we are looking at the Facebook as a social network, not the entire Facebook or Meta. And basically for the Facebook term of service also says that you own the intellectual property, right? So basically whatever you write on Facebook is yours, assuming it's your original work, etc., etc. So Facebook doesn't own the posts. The posts that are written in Facebook are owned by people who wrote them. However, similar with Twitter, sort of if you're using Facebook, in order to use Facebook, you have to accept term of service, and when you accept it, you grant Facebook like this royalty-free, and basically everything. We can do everything with your post, and you will relinquish your rights when it comes to us as Facebook. However, Facebook also like has this guidelines what to post, and like basically make sure that what you post is not copyrighted, etc. So if it's like some derivative, etc., basically think twice before you post. I don't think everyone reads it, but that's how it is. Yeah, basically here's a very interesting thing they use is if you there's basically what you post can infringe copyright, even if what the content is, you think it's a fair use. We'll talk about this fair use a little bit later. So now we'll go also at Fitbit, like one of this, maybe more related to our project, since we are like Internet of Sports. And Fitbit also have like many communities where people like, so it's like mini social network where people like share their data, etc., their progress, photos, whatnot. And basically Fitbit follows all the other companies. They say you retain all rights on your content. However, you grant us like this. Basically, I think they copy paste from each other like this on non-exclusive. It's exactly like even the world order is the same. I think there's one guy who basically drafts all those policies, and yeah, basically you allow us to do everything we want with what you post in our resources. All right. Also, like Fitbit is interesting. It's maybe not basically Fitbit in their term of service. They also say that all kinds of stuff, like you agree not to like disassemble our app, not to try to attack like our products, not to try to find vulnerabilities. You are not attempt to use like impersonate other people. You are not like collect, harvest information of our reasons, etc. Basically, I'm not sure like if it's like what if I use Fitbit without logging in or without signing anything? Does it apply? So I think they just like do it to maybe discourage people who want to do that, but I'm not aware of any like court cases in court where some of those were disputed or like So I would say that they do it because they can, and maybe if it goes to court, the judge will not rule, even if some of those were like violated, some of those points, but we never know. They just do it, and we have to accept it. Right, and basically some other companies that like provide sort of like this, social networks into their services, such as like Yelp, where people review, IMDb, where people like leave their reviews, and basically many others. They all follow this stuff. So basically, content is what you post is yours. However, you grant us like basically rights to do whatever we want with this content. So yeah, I looked at some of like these major companies, and they all basically the same when it comes to this point. Now, if we look more like to the domain of GDPR, we know that GDPR protects personal data. And what is personal data? Means any information that can be like that can identify a natural person who is a data subject. And for example, let's say we see these two tweets. First one, I, John Smith, like this movie a lot, blah, 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 blah. Another one, like on the right-hand side, congratulations have been chosen for my charity project and will now get a cash donation of $1.2 million, blah, blah, blah. That's a mail I received like a couple of days ago, basically. Like on the left-hand side, it's clearly like personal data, right? Because it comes from, it clearly identifies a person who wrote it. So data might be copyrighted or might be personal. On the left side, it's personal because it identifies a person who wrote it. But here, if I share like a spam email I got, is it a personal data? Am I like violating GDPR if I do that? I don't think so, right? Because it's not personal, and any judge I think would agree that this whatever doesn't link to someone particular, like a data subject, as stated in GDPR. All right, now we'll talk about data derivatives. So let's say you found some data, you collected it, and you somehow modified it. It's not the same data anymore, right? Copyright prevents someone from like sharing this data, but you're not sharing the data, you're sharing the derivative. Is it legal? Not? Can it be done? What are the conditions? We'll try to look at it now. Right? So one of the famous case that now we'll first talk about, I think many people interested about like machine learning models. So let's say I go to Facebook, I collect all this copyrighted data, posts, Twitter, tweets, like whatever. I train a model and I don't share any data, I just share the model to the world. I say, okay, this is a model trained on Facebook posts, use it. It might be trained on copyright data, right? Right. But I'm not sharing anyone's data, right? Is it like legal or not? I'm not saying it is. Remember, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word on it. But we'll try to figure out with you. And yeah, I think one of the famous, and perhaps now this is the only case that is like, well, maybe there are more, but they're not so well known. But this is a well-known case again, which was Authors Guild versus Google. And Authors Guild is like a body that embodies many writers and content creators in the United States of America. And basically what happened is that Google used the books. We also maybe we'll have a look at one later, as I said you later in the presentation. So what Google did, they took like basically books, they trained some models on the books, like tales, fairy tales, detective, whatever, of famous authors. They did not ask permissions. They just got those books somewhere, like downloaded, bought it, whatever. Like they train their models. And what is more important, it's not a like classification model. It's like you can consider it as a generative model. So it doesn't like say class 1, class 2. It's more like you type like your keyword and it outputs like your parts of the copyrighted content, parts of the book stories, like parts of the chapters. So it's also very important. We'll look at later. Basically, Google said, okay, we allowed to do it because I think it's a fair use. And remember, we looked at this fair use when we looked at the Facebook term of service, and fair use is an American term. Fair use is like, we'll also look at it later, but fair use is basically a doctrine that that allows sometimes to use copyrighted data under very specific conditions. And Google said basically, okay, we allow to do it because it's fair use. This Authors Guild disagree. Some of them, like I think this Authors Guild, it was like eventually it was bigger. It was like Author Association, but Google sort of agreed, like some arrangement. They basically paid some money to other plaintiffs in this case, and eventually only Authors Guild didn't accept like Google's terms, and the case went to the U.S. Supreme Court. Basically, Supreme Court is the highest court, and no one can overrule the decision of Supreme Court. It's like, yeah, if Supreme Court decides, basically it's how it will be. And Supreme Court said that Google were right, basically, and this Authors Guild were wrong, and Google was allowed to keep everything, and yeah, basically they won the case. Now, you see, Google was using a generative model, but what is a discriminative model? Let's say I use copyrighted books, and my model would say, the input to the model would be like a book, maybe a book title, or like maybe a prologue, or like first page or whatever, and my model would output if it's like a detective or not, like a binary classification model. So, and let's say I collect like all the copyrighted detective books that are there, and would it be like an infringement of copyright rights? Is it legal or not? And what is written in the slide, it's not my opinion, it's an opinion of this blog post from the Toward Data Science, blah, blah, blah. You can look it up. And basically the person who is writing this blog he says is perfectly legal, which I don't think I agree with, but basically he says that discrimination should be legal in principle, and likely court would side with the person who trains those discriminative model, even if the data is copyrighted and maybe like collected from public sources, social media, whatever, whatnot. However, when it comes to generative machine learning models, there has not been yet court rulings except like this Google model. But let's say if you collect copyrighted images and you output like another image with your generative like model, would it be legal or not? Not sure. Yeah. So perhaps what I would say, I think it's likely that court would find using copyrighted material in a discriminative model or like, yeah, to be not illegal, whereas using generative, it's a higher chance of find to be illegal. So yeah, I guess if it's safer to go with the first option. That's what I would say. Also, yeah, that's where the difference comes between United States and Europe. And in Europe, it's actually been a hot topic lately. And I think like those, like European Parliament, blah blah blah. I think they initially wanted to do like some ruling. So some lawmakers wanted to present some law by the end 2021. So maybe it will happen. We don't know. It's 2 months until 2022. And basically already some countries in European Union, they want to do something like, like GDPR, like big one, but already some countries in European Union adopted a so-called non-commercial text and data mining, which basically allowed such countries as United Kingdom, France, Germany, and Estonia allow unauthorized reproduction of copyright works for the non-commercial text data mining. So basically, that means you can like use you can use copyright material for non-commercial models. That's how it can be interpreted. Also, clears to mine content to which users already have access, which basically means that according to this document, blah blah. So it's official, I think, right? Yes, it's official. And basically, I think what it says is that if you have access to like a social network or something, you have like explicit permission to, well, not explicit, but you sort of can do it without commercial use. So if you can like mine tweets, mine posts, whatever, and like do some machine learning models, as long as you don't like sell those models, and as long as you do not post like if you post like weights of machine learning models, it's okay. But if you post the same content, I think it's not okay. But it's my understanding, might be not true. So yeah. Yeah, and also countries recommended to non-profit research institutions. So for us, I think because most of us are like members of some university, like research institutions, so it's even stronger for us because basically it's additional bonus for non-research institutions to collect, harvest, and use the data from public sources, which even might, if it is copyrighted. For United States, there is no such initiative, but they have like this fair use doctrine, which is among others allows Americans or like people who operate in the United States to use some of the copyrighted material without asking explicit consent or clearance from the copyright holders. For instance, when you go and let's say you go to Twitter, you open some post and it has a copyright image or something. You know that this is it like a question what I would be might be asking like 2 months ago. Would it be legal to right click, save as, like into your computer? And the answer, by the way, it's already saved, right? If you turn on the internet, the picture is still there. It's already somewhere in the computer. Might be in cache, might be in thumbnails or in digital library. So picture is already saved on your computer. So in principle, it's not illegal, right? Because you already saved this picture, even though you didn't press like Control F, but the picture is already on your PC in the memory. And this is what considered fair use. So if you basically fair use doctrine clears some of the cases where copyright materials can be used without asking the permission. Or if you watch like a Netflix movie, right? If you do it in offline, or even if you do online, you press pause, you go like for a walk for 10 hours or something, you return, it's already in your PC, right? It's been downloaded. So even though you haven't pressed download or anything, but it's copyrighted material, but you already got it. There are other cases, which I will not talk about, where basically it does not necessary to cite or ask permission to use the original work, even if it is copyrighted. Now we'll talk about a little bit about other types of derivatives. So some like quite recent cases. This one I think is like the first one is maybe 1 month old or something. Like a swimsuit model sues Twitter because some users use some like AI techniques to crop photos, or like, I'm not sure if it's exactly what techniques I use, but basically like the Salin's algorithm to create like forged images based on the original ones. Perhaps I'm not sure, I won't go into it, but yeah, basically there's an ongoing tweet. Another one, it was also happened I think last month, where a Japanese man was arrested for using an open source GAN, generative adversarial network, for unblurring genitals on adult videos. Kind of interesting, but yeah, basically he didn't go to jail because some like, you know, he went to jail specifically for copyright infringement. So it wasn't like other, but it's specifically, I guess under Japanese law, like I think they have a specific law for adult videos, but basically it was specifically for violating copyright law. So apparently, it's like what this library does. It trains on images that I guess were not blurred, and like, so it's in principle, like it's, yeah, I don't know, make your own conclusions. Yeah, and I guess that's pretty much it. Also, there is also a point of non-commercial and commercial use, but I guess I touched it a little bit. And yeah, I think if you have any questions on recording, I will take it now. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Andrei. So are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I have understood what is meant. You say that basically in the United States, like you can always make like a fair use of the data, but I'm not sure I understood what this fair use in general it is. Like you provided some examples, but I'm not sure what in general it means.
Well,
like,
fair use basically is a set of rules that define when copyrighted content can be used without like asking permission and without like fearing legal prosecution, let's say. And some of those cases is like, let's say when you open a copyright like content on your computer, it's already like saved on you. So you already downloaded it effectively somewhere. It might be in cache, might be like whatever. That's an example. There are others, but basically, I don't think it's the main point of the presentation, but basically this fair use explains cases where copyrighted material can be used without explicit permission of the copyright holders. That's what it is. I guess if you have like a lot of money and good lawyers, like Google does apparently, they won a case like with these copyright materials, with and they proved that what they did was like fair use or something else. I don't know exactly what I haven't read the entire ruling of the judge, but basically one of what Google implied when they use copyright material to train their models was that we use it as a fair use, basically.
Okay, I see. Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, then let's thank again Andrei for his very interesting presentation, and see you at the next seminar.